Thanks so much for joining us. I'm Glenn Mills. It is time to go inside Utah politics. We begin today with the Republican nominee for governor, Lieutenant Governor Spencer Cox. Welcome back to the show. Good to have you with us.
Thanks, Glenn. It's always good to be with you.
What a race that was. I mean, we were kind of joking before we started recording that you've provided me with content for more than a year now. One thing I kept hearing among Republican circles is how impressed they were with the field, and that they would like to see more of that on a national level. But anyway, back to this race. What do you make of the field? It was crowded at first, but a lot of quality candidates, from what I was hearing from Republicans, lining up to make this race.
Well, that's exactly right. As I talked to colleagues across the country, they were really impressed that we had so many great people running for office here in the state of Utah. Not just the 4 that made it through to the primary, but those that were in at the convention level as well. We were blessed with, as the chairman of the Republican Party said yesterday, an embarrassment of riches for the people, for the Republicans in the state to choose from. And we just feel even more fortunate to have been able to win the vote during the primary race.
Okay, let's talk about that. How did you come out on top?
Well, I think there were several different reasons. The biggest one for us was our grassroots support, our ground game. As you know, in one of our first conversations over a year ago, when we started this race, we worked really hard. We visited all 248 cities and towns. We had thousands of small dollar donors that helped us in this race. We had hundreds of people that gathered signatures for us, went door to door, made phone calls on our behalf. That really was the difference. It was a close race, and every vote mattered. And it's one thing to have voters, it's another thing to have supporters. Supporters not only vote for you, but they make sure that their family and friends vote for you. And we had supporters, and I really believe that made the difference.
I want to talk to you a little bit more about that, because from the moment you jumped in, it's not that I never thought you weren't a legitimate candidate, but the point where I really saw you moving forward was turning in the signatures without paying someone to do it. That's a pretty impressive feat.
Yeah, it's something that it isn't done. To get 28,000 signatures, and they have to be verified Republican signatures, and to do it almost exclusively using volunteers was you know, at first we were nervous. We weren't sure we'd be able to do it, but then the volunteers came out and made a huge difference. So not only did it save us money, but again, those signatures became votes for us as people were talking to their friends and neighbors and felt like they were part of this movement. It was more than just a campaign. We also wanted to prove that we could run a positive campaign, that a campaign could actually be a force for good. And so doing service projects and talking about the issues, focusing on the issues, not focusing on tearing down our opponents, again, made our volunteers and our supporters feel like it was a campaign they could be proud of.
Let's get into that a little more. I know a lot of your supporters felt like you were being attacked during the campaign. Did you feel that way? Did you think it was unnecessarily negative, what you were seeing come from some of your opponents?
Well, certainly. It's something that I've talked about for years before I was running for office, that politics has become so toxic in our nation. It's become very divisive. It's become a competition to tear people down. Certainly, we're not above criticism, and we deserve criticism. That's part of being a leader, having broad shoulders to take that criticism. But the way we do it, I think, absolutely matters. And one of the things I'm most proud of is that the voters of Utah again said they rejected negative campaigning. We've proven once again that negative campaigning does not work here in the state of Utah. And we're hoping that that will inspire more people to want to get involved in politics, realizing that they can run on a positive platform, they can run a positive campaign, and that they can still win.
Specifically, though, what did you feel was negative? I've covered politics in Colorado and Wisconsin, and I guess it's all relative. But when you take a look at the way things are run in those two states, to me, I don't see a lot of negative campaigning in the state of Utah.
Sure. Well, you must have not gotten all the flyers and and saw all the billboards.
Okay, so dark money.
Dark money was certainly part of that.
I did see some dark money go after John Huntsman as well.
Yeah, we had dark money come after us, and we had people that were very upfront about that. I mean, there were other criticisms comparing our response to the coronavirus to communist China or communist Russia, those types of things. There just isn't a place for that, and the voters saw through it, and were willing to reject that.
Let's talk about plurality. It was an issue in this race here. In fact, from the beginning, we were thinking the winner would win with around 35%. You got 36%. But that does mean in a situation like this that 64% voted for someone else. So what's your message to those 64%?
Sure. Well, first of all, we said the same thing. We thought 35 was the magic number, and it turned out that we were right. Just north of 35 was where we ended up. This is actually very common in other states. I know in Idaho 2 years ago, the lieutenant governor won there with 38%. We're not as used to it here in the state of Utah, although Mike Leavitt won with a plurality in the general election, I think around 42% several years ago. But what I would say is this is what we do, right? We bring people together. The Republican Party now comes together and unites. The nice thing about running a positive campaign is it's a lot easier to bring people along and have them join your campaign as we didn't spend time tearing others down or tearing the supporters of those other candidates down. We think that will make it much easier to bring us together as we move into November and go up against our Democratic opponent. We feel very confident that Republicans will unite. And by the way, you know, Greg Hughes, Thomas Wright, all of these people that we ran against have called and offered their congratulations and their willingness to work together to move forward.
Okay, well, I want to get into November in just a bit, but a few more things to ask you about real fast. You mentioned the response. State Auditor John Dougal is looking into that. What do you expect to see from his report?
I've had a great conversation with John Dougal about that. I think we'll see exactly what we've been saying, that everybody worked really hard on this response, that there was nothing, there was absolutely no corruption or wrongdoing that went on in any of this, and we expect a clean report when that comes out.
When all of you were debating at the Silicon Slopes debate, I was there covering that, President Trump came up, and that kind of became a theme throughout the campaign as well. I have to be honest, when I heard you say you supported the president, I was a little surprised because of things that I had heard in the past. So at what point did that change for you?
Well, look, when you're running to be the head of the party of a state, which is what the governor is in every state, it's very important that we support the person who is nominated for our party at the national level. But more important than that, what the people of Utah want is that we have a good relationship with the president. We worked really hard to do that when we had a Democrat in office. The governor and I worked very closely with the Obama administration. We disagreed on so many things, but we were able to accomplish things that the people of Utah needed and wanted. And the same thing with the Trump administration. We have a great working relationship with President Trump and Vice President Pence, and the people of Utah care that continues. And that's my job, is to make sure that I am representing the people of Utah to Washington, D.C., and making sure that we get things done that we need to, regardless of whoever is the president.
Moving to November, you already mentioned you'll be facing a Democratic nominee, Chris Peterson, a University of Utah professor. We've had him on the show. What's the main message that you'll be focusing on as you now turn your attention to the general?
Well, the main message is the message that we were focusing on during the primary, and that is that we have to make sure that we're protecting the welfare and safety of the people of Utah, also rebuilding our economy. We built the best economy in the nation over the past 10 years, and we're going to do it again. But also, and this is all I would have been talking about if it wasn't for the pandemic, focusing on education and building a world-class education system here in the state of Utah, making sure that we overcome the teacher shortage that we're seeing right now, and that we restore the joy of teaching in the classroom.
Okay, yeah, definitely. The pandemic changed everything right in the middle of the game. One last question for you. There's some talk about a possible write-in campaign in the general. What are your thoughts on that?
I don't know that I have any thoughts on that. I would be certainly surprised. Writing campaigns have almost never been successful at this level, and we've been told we have the support of all the other candidates, and we look forward to running together as Republicans in the fall election.
All right, Spencer Cox, thanks so much for your time. Appreciate having you with us today.
Thank you, Glenn.